Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Business Utility Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, February the 13th, 2024. Mr. Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Representative Alexander, Representative Burkhart, Representative Clemens, Representative Freeman, Representative Hale, Representative Holsclaw, Representative Johnson, Representative Marsh, Representative Thompson, Representative Vaughn, Representative Vital,
Present.
Representative Zachary, Chairman Boyd.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, before we get started today, do we have any personal orders? Speaker Marsh, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just saw one of my buddies from Shelbyville, Jason Bobo, came in. He's down here working with the Bar Association. He's an attorney with another truck line in Shelbyville. So welcome, Jason.
Members, any other personal orders? If not, we do have a couple of housekeeping things. At the request of the sponsor, item number 4, House Bill 2646 by Representative Miller has been rolled 2 weeks. At the request of the sponsor, item number 5, that's House Bill 1903 by Representative Burkhart, has been rolled 1 week. All right, that brings us to our calendar, and item number 1, we're going to roll it to the hill of the calendar. That's Representative Birkin's House Bill 640. Next up is item number 2, that's House Bill 351 by Representative Hardaway, and we will roll him, let's roll him 2 spaces. That brings us to item number 3, and that is House Bill 1807 by Representative Butler. Representative Butler, you are recognized. We have a motion. We have a second. Stand by just a minute, sponsor. Okay, sponsor, it looks like you've got a new amendment that you want to adopt. Can you give me the drafting code on that, please?
Yes, Chairman. That is 013556.
Okay, members, we are voting. I need a motion and a second for the amendment. We have a motion. We have a second. We're voting to add amendment 013556 to the bill. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill is amended. You are recognized for explanation.
Thank you. We've been here before and talked about this and working with the departments and some folks that are in these industries. Originally, it required 3 business days for inspections, and we have amended this to include 3 business days for inspections, with the exception of a certificate of occupancy inspection, and that will be done within 5 business days. And part of the reason for that was some folks who expressed concern because that's such an important inspection. It takes a lot more time. And that's the reason we moved it out for 5 days, and also to help accommodate some of the department's concerns with being able to meet these requirements and so forth. And so I'll be glad to answer any questions. With that, I renew my motion.
Thank you, sponsor. Members, you've heard the explanation. Representative Freeman, you recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and sponsor. We've talked about this bill. It's needed. And those of you that are not familiar, these issues can cost huge dollars in carrying cost and loss of leases because you don't hit the milestones that you're supposed to. So I would encourage you and maybe this committee to really try to get this funded in the budget, because this is it's a big problem across our state. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Representative, you're recognized.
Thank you for those comments. And I know there was some question before whether this bill was the same as the governor's proposed bill. It's not. It kind of deals with a different aspect. They actually parallel one another and working together for the same objective, and that is to expedite these inspections and make it more efficient for the contractor, more efficient for the owner, and reduce costs as much as possible. And so I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
Okay. Speaker Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you sort of answered that one, but tell me what the difference is between what you're trying to do and what the governor's got in his proposal.
You're recognized.
The governor's legislation is not necessarily addressing all of these state departments. This will deal with the Health Commission, with the State Fire Marshal's office. The governor's bill addresses some TDEC issues, allows you to hire a third-party engineer to do some inspections and so forth, and then submit those reports to whatever inspecting entity. This is dealing with state of Tennessee departments doing in construction inspections. So a little bit different, but they have the same objective.
Speaker Marsh?
Well, if his passes, will it help what you're trying to do here?
You're recognized, sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman. Not necessarily. they will actually address two different areas with the same objective. So it'll be improving inspections with the Department of, with TDEC, with building inspections related to other issues, but they really don't affect each other, I don't think. There might be some minor overlap. I might refer to Chairman Vaughn on that.
Speaker Marsh, you got anything else?
Thank you.
Chairman Vaughn, your name was mentioned. Do you want to opine on your bill coming forward from the administration?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I would say that with regards to the bill sponsor, Speaker Marsh, he's correct in the fact that while this bill details what goes on within state inspections, the governor's bill gives private individuals the opportunity to employ a third-party plan reviewer dealing with municipality inspections and permitting. It's a little bit broader than what he has. His is a targeted approach on the state departments. This would be the operational guidelines that they would be required to operate in, whereas the governor's bill touches a much broader category than what he's addressing with this particular bill.
Sponsor, do you have anything else? Representative Clemens, is your hand up? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify, this amendment that we're voting on that makes the bill, you've taken out all the stuff that where you can use pictures and or Zoom or whatever that we had concerns about before, right? That's not in this amendment.
Sponsor, recognized.
That is correct. We've taken all that out. The departments will handle however they want to get those done.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, Representative Holtzclaw, recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And you feel like the increased state expenditures is accurate?
Sponsor, go ahead.
I think that after we've made this final amendment, extending that certificate of occupancy inspection, I've met with the Health Commission this morning. I believe that may come down slightly, but I know it's hard for them to assess exactly what that's going to cost. So it may or may not be affected slightly with this amendment.
Okay, thank
Chairman
you.
Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Representative Otto, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Butler, for this bill. I appreciate you taking the time to work through it and rolling it in the past, and the time you spent with me to better educate me and folks in my district that had some concerns, and balancing between the private sector's needs to get things done timely and also the practicality of dealing with the Health Facilities Commission. So thank you very much, and I am supporting the bill. Thank you.
Sponsor, got anything else?
That's it. I renew my motion.
All righty. Well, I appreciate, I was going to ask you to sort of reconcile this against the administration bill, but between you and Chairman Vaughn, I think we've covered that. Sounds like a great bill. Members, we are voting on House Bill 1807 as amended to send it to full commerce. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill is on its way to full commerce.
Thank you, committee.
That brings us to my bill. So Chairman Vaughn, I'm going to hand it down, the gavel down to you. Okay.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda is House Bill 2268 by Chairman Boyd. Motion. Got a motion and second. Mr. Sponsor, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, House Bill 2268 is a pretty simple piece of legislation. It would amend the statute to allow public auto auctions to use one motor vehicle license rather than each auctioneer having to have one. And that's all the bill does. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, we're going to call the question on House Bill 2268. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are off to Commerce Full.
All right, members, that brings us back to the calendar. That brings us to House Bill 351 by Representative Hardaway. He is still not here. If anybody wants to, Representative Hardaway. We have a motion. We have a second. All right, House Bill 351 is off a notice. And members, we're going to take a 2-minute recess while we wait on Representative Brecken to get back here. Members, we are back in session and we're on item number 1, House Bill 640 by Representative Bricken. Representative Bricken, you are recognized. We have a motion, we have a second, and Representative, you have a new amendment that you want to put on this bill. Is that correct?
It's 013722. Or,
We don't have that amendment,
all right,
Representative
because
Bricken.
it was late filed.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, because of what you've told me you want to do with the bill, let's go ahead and go out of session to hear from Tim Amos. And do you have anything you need to say on it now, or are you okay with that?
No, I'm fine. I'm
Okay.
fine. Let's get y'all educated on this bill and we'll go from there.
Members, we are out of session, and I'd like to have Mr. Tim Amos come up. And Mr. Amos, just remember to turn your microphone on and state your name for the record. You can sit down or stand up, either one.
I'll stand.
I think your microphone's off, Mr. Amos. Should be a red light.
You want the red light on? Is that on?
We got you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tim Amos. I'm an attorney here in Nashville, and I'm a state-appointed uniform law commissioner, thanks to Mr. Speaker Sexton. I do very much appreciate the appointment, and I represent the Uniform Law Commission. This legislation is a update to the Uniform Commercial Code. The last significant update happened in year 2000, so it's been about 23 years since we updated the Uniform Commercial Code, which governs virtually a whole plethora of commercial transactions, all the way from sales, leases, secured transactions, bills and notes, banking, deposits and collections, virtually everything that you can imagine of in the commercial world. It sets a platform and a set of default rules so that businesses across the country can have a set of rules that everyone pretty much understands. Understand that the code is very flexible, and parties have the right to contract to a different set of rules. But where they don't contract, the code comes in and sets the default rules. When the code was last adopted, or was last updated in the year 2000, we were in a paper-based economy, and all of the rules and much of the process of those rules was based on the fact that you had a piece of paper. If you wanted to perfect a security interest, you filed a piece of paper with the Secretary of State. We are in a much different world today, where we have electronic transactions. We have a whole new set of electronic transactions like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and non-fungible tokens that are out there that really aren't defined and really don't fit into the code the way we have it set. So the whole purpose of this legislation is to update those rules and to provide a flexible set of processes so that people can move forward in the electronic world. There's understandably, I know that you're getting a lot of comment from constituents that are concerned about something called a central bank digital currency. Understand this legislation cannot create a central bank digital currency. We can't create it. We can't prevent it from being created. What the drafters in this legislation tried to do is make a very fine line and a very clear distinction between digital assets like Bitcoin or NFTs, to say those are clearly not money. Okay. And to then say that if a government creates a digital currency, then that is money for purposes of the code, because the use of the term money runs throughout the code for many, many purposes in terms of payments for goods and services, payments for leases and hybrid transactions, so that you have a clear distinction between what is money and what is not money. And I understand that that's where the concern comes in, is that there is a great fear that if you allow the government to create a central bank digital currency, that will give the government a much more control over everything you do.
Mr. Amos, I hate to
in your
cut you
life.
off, but you've hit your cap on the length of time. However, we probably do have some questions for you.
You got
Would-
questions?
Yeah.
I'd be glad to answer.
So members, you've heard his explanation of the update to the UCC in this legislation. Do we have any questions for Mr. Amos? Representative Clemens, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Amos, can you tell me how this legislation cannot create money and why the distinction of the definition of money is so important?
Well, first off, it can't create money because the U.S. Constitution says that only the federal government can coin money. So by definition, as a state, we cannot create money. Okay, so that's the first premise. The second premise is that to allay some of the fears, our First Amendment put a clear statement in our act to say this act and the code that we're enacting doesn't authorize or doesn't endorse or create a digital currency. The distinction is the fact that if Bitcoin is not money, for example, it's a cryptocurrency. Now, the fact is parties under the code right now, they could agree as part of their transaction to accept Bitcoin in payment for their transaction. I mean, I understand that there are merchants that will accept Bitcoin, say for Starbucks. That's their choice. The code doesn't authorize it. But it doesn't require it, but it does permit it by contract. The other side of that issue is that if it is money and it's issued by a central bank, then it should be treated as money. I think my concern here is I don't see, and I don't think anybody on the Uniform Law Commission drafting committee foresaw that the U.S. is at any time soon is going to create a digital currency. But what they did try to do is to make this distinction so that if sometime in the future, it could be 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, that it already provides for that possibility. Now, I understand that there may be some effort here to say, no, we don't want you to go there and we're not going to recognize it. But at the same time, if the government issues the currency, then we ought to accept it. For example, what happens if China adopts a central bank digital currency? Can Bridgestone then not sell tires in China because it's not going to accept money, the Chinese currency? So the bill that we have tries to be neutral on that issue so that in the future you can accept it. If you want to exclude it, I think that's the third amendment that Representative Bricken has offered that you may want to put on the bill, would say it's not money for our purposes. You have to beg the question is, what is it? If they, in fact, they do it. So what we tried to do in the third amendment would be say, okay, we're going to treat it just like we're going to treat Bitcoin. Okay. And in that case, if China adopts a central bank digital currency and you want to accept it by contract, then you accept it in the same way that you would accept Bitcoin. That's kind of what we tried to bridge that gap. And then that just kind of punched the ball down the road for 2 or 3 years, because in 3 to 5 years, if in fact they create a digital currency, then you may need to come back and relook at this issue at the state level. The drafting committee tried to look at it from the perspective of, we're not going to make that decision today. We have a platform so that we don't have to come back in 2 or 3 or 5 years when that eventuality happens.
All right. Representative Clem.
Thank you. Just to
Representative
clarify.
Clem, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Just to clarify, we cannot legally, as a state in this body, create money. This bill does not create money or recognize money that does not exist. And it leaves the possibility open for, should some other power that actually has the ability to create money or define something as money, it allows for the businesses of Tennessee to be able to transact or conduct business in accordance with these uniform rules, or uniform laws. Is that correct?
Correct on all counts.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so the Uniform Commission, I mean, is this coming from the Uniform Commission and its platform? And I know this is made up of many attorneys from across the country like yourself that are looking at this stuff, having in-depth conversations really thoughtfully. Is this a result of those types of conversations among those types of qualified professionals?
Yes, this act, the Uniform Law Commission, just to give you a thumbnail, is composed of about 400 delegates, commissioners from all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. territories. They meet annually. The drafting, they have what's called a permanent editorial board for the UCC, which is a joint project with the American Law Institute, which is an adjunct of the American Bar Association. This project and development of this update took about 5 years. And so they had multiple committee meetings over 5 years. They had a process that's very transparent and very open. They had over 300 what are called observers, people that are from various industries, the Bankers Association, the Bar Association, other individual companies can sit in and listen in and participate in all of those drafting committee meetings and have input into the process to get to this end result.
Chairman Devon, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Amos, what happens to us with regards to in the world of commerce if we don't pass a bill addressing these NFTs and cryptocurrencies? Could you tell us what happens, because a lot of the messaging that we've been getting touts the fact that South Dakota's governor vetoed this bill, and there's other places that are being held up as a standard of how to deal with this. What happens if we do nothing? What's our do nothing alternative?
Well, I think South Dakota, in all deference to the governor, I think misunderstood and didn't get correct information on really what the bill did. What happens is right now you have a whole group of people creating, for lack of a better word, new financial instruments like Bitcoin and like NFTs. If you don't address how that process works, then you limit individuals' ability to effectively use those instruments in commerce. For example, right now, if you have Bitcoin, and I don't have any, not likely to have any, but if you had some and you wanted to use that asset category as security for a loan, there really isn't a process in our current code to do that, because right now, because they're not defined and they don't fit into any of the current categories of assets, they would be treated as a general intangible. And so perfecting an interest in a general tangible right now is where you go file a UCC1 with the Secretary of State. Well, now, is that going to be a very effective way to perfect your interest in Bitcoin? Well, no, of course not. So what this bill does is it sets up a regime so that if you want to pledge your Bitcoin to a third party in security for a loan, well, you have to transfer the Bitcoin to basically a trustee, for lack of a better word. It's not technically a trustee, but somebody who's going to hold the Bitcoin. You give that person what's called a control agreement. It's called a controllable digital asset. And then the control agreement, you give it to me, the lender, and then I say to the holder of your Bitcoin, you can't release the Bitcoin until you pay my loan. And that's a simple solution, and that's what the bill does. Without that, you are, as an individual, probably somewhat restricted in finding somebody that's going to lend against your Bitcoin, because there's a lot of uncertainty as to how they perfect their interest.
Chairman Vaughn.
Thank you, Chairman. So basically, we're prohibiting folks from maximizing their use of their, I guess, the way I like to look at it is Bitcoin is private digital currency, because it's a value prescribed or assigned to it by the pure market, and it's not a governmental entity. So that to me speaks to something that hey, just a precursor. Going to have a Bitcoin bill coming forward. It's going to be great. I look forward to all your support on it. But it's kind of the anti-central digital currency. And so what we're saying is that if we don't have a way for people to perfect their liens in it, then it minimizes its asset quality, because that somewhat takes it out of its ability to become, I guess, a consideration for someone in a transaction. And so we're kind of stuck in this, we're afraid of something, but our fear is prohibiting us from maximizing the response to what folks are afraid of. And that's just a quandary that I'm trying to figure out the wise way to get out of that box, because it's something that we didn't we didn't make this world we live in, but we're sure living in it now. And so I'm trying to figure out, can it all be done? And that's where I am in this, because I'd hate for us, for our actions, for basically as a result, that we tell Tennesseans, hey, we've devalued your investment in digital currency because we can't get our arms wrapped around this UCC aspect and deal with whether or not it has anything in the world at all to do with the central digital bank currency. And let me ask you that again, because I think I picked up on it. I thought you kind of soft pedaled it a little bit. And as this body can't stop U.S. from implementing a central digital bank currency, no matter if we pass 100 laws.
That's correct.
And so I think it's something that that this body, yes, we need to study it more and we need to get our arms around it, but I don't think we can stick our heads in the sand on it and say that, and act like we've got more authority in this matter than we actually do. And in the interim, inadvertently punish or minimize our constituents' investments in these asset classes. And I'm like you, I don't know a single one, but I do find it to be a fascinating proposition with regards to how people do business today. And so with that, I'll hush. I know we've had many conversations about this with the bill sponsor, and we're kind of in a tough spot. And so anyway, I'll yield back to you, Mr. Chairman, but that's my pontification.
All right. I didn't hear a question in there, Mr. Chairman, so we'll move on to, I didn't want to hear a question in there. Maybe is what Chairman Zachary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Amos. In your testimony, you really reinforce my concerns with the bill, because while this certainly, and similar to Chairman Vaughn's comments, there's nothing we can do if the federal government creates a central bank digital currency. But if numerous states band together to make it more difficult to implement that by changing the definition of deposit account, changing the definition of money, it does make it more difficult for the federal government to implement such a change within our monetary system. And so within your testimony, you did talk about, while this doesn't establish anything related to a central bank digital currency, it does set the framework allowing the central bank digital currency, once implemented from the federal government, to be implemented throughout our process in the state. And that's what concerns me. And so I want to, as a holder of Bitcoin, as a holder of Ethereum, I do want to address exactly what Chairman Vaughn was talking about. But when we have a bill that's almost 80 pages, that always gives me pause, because we don't pass bills like that in the state level. People hear about 2,000-page bills in Congress and that they don't read them. We don't do that in Tennessee. Most of our bills are fairly manageable. We all read the bills. And so I just have a great concern and great pause, as do the people I represent, based on the fact I've gotten more emails about this than any other topic to date that's going through session. And so because of that, and addressing what Chairman Vaughn talked about, which I do think is critically important, but also ensuring, as we've already put an amendment on it to address deposit accounts, ensuring that we are not taking steps to allow for a central bank digital currency to easily be implemented in our state. And we joined Florida, we joined South Dakota, we joined North Dakota, we joined Alabama, those states who have already taken some steps to pass, making it more difficult to implement. I feel like an in-depth study of this, bringing in stakeholders, bringing in outside resources to really help us as a committee better understand this is a step we have to take, my personal opinion, a step we have to take before we as a body can vote on this bill. I can't vote. I will not vote and support a 70-something page bill that I just have significant concerns on, and no matter how we amend it, and that my constituents have concerns on. And so I thank you for your testimony and just confirming what my concerns are about the bill. And Mr. Chairman, I look forward to the next steps we take. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Zachary. Anybody else? If not, we're going back into, Mr. Ramos, you have the final word. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Zachary. I think you can actually accomplish both in this bill, in the sense that you can, with the Third Amendment, if you'll take a look at it and have an opportunity, you can move forward with the benefits of the broader aspects of the legislation, and take that one issue on a central bank digital currency and as you say, make it more difficult for the U.S. government to adopt a central bank currency, because Tennessee and other states have banded together and said, no, we don't want it. And I think you can really accomplish both goals by adopting an amendment and move forward.
All right, members, we're going back into session. And Representative Bricken, you were recognized again. You have an amendment. The position we find ourselves is you have an amendment that was untimely filed, but I believe it's your intent to roll this bill. Is that correct? You're rolling this to the final calendar, which would be your third roll, which would put it on the special calendar.
Yes,
You're recognized.
Chairman, that is my intent. So I'd like to get all the amendments attached, so when it comes off to the special calendar at the toward the end of session, we'll have it all in a good spot. So if we could get there, I'd appreciate it.
We will, we've got all the amendments on there except the untimely filed one, but it will be easy to put on later when you run it. So, in the special calendar.
So we have amendment 12-138, 10-465, and 12-833 already on the bill.
The drafting
Okay.
codes, let's look at them real quick. Read them off again. Go ahead.
The first one is 12-138.
We've got it. It's on there.
10-465
Yes, sir.
and 12-833.
That's right. All three of those have been adopted, last time we heard the bill.
All right.
So you'd like
Thank
to
you.
roll,
With
this will be
that, I would-
rolled without objection. House Bill 640 is rolled to the final calendar, which will put it on the special calendar.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, members, do we have anything else? If not, members, this meeting is adjourned.